You're listening to the Voices of the Vic podcast with Ben Aiton and Mike Duffy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Voices of the Vic. Now, the new intro does say we've Ben Aiton and Mike Duffy, but first thing I want to make sure and make clear that everybody knows is that I'm not with Ben this week, and I'll come on to it in a minute who I'm with. But the reason I'm not with Ben is, as I'm sure our followers would have seen on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook, that Ben is actually a father for the first time. Him and his fiancée Kate had the arrival of their wonderful daughter Isla. So Ben is now away on parenting duties. He will be back next week though to discuss the Sheffield Wednesday results and then discuss the Luton game going forward. I just want to say massive congratulations, Ben. I know that you'll be listening back, and I'm absolutely chuffed for you, mate. I could do a whole podcast on how chuffed I am for you, mate. Let's put it that way. But stepping into his place is James from the Watford way. James, how the hell are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. How are you, Mike?
I'm very, very good, thank you. I'm very good. You looking forward to this one?
Yeah, absolutely. I obviously just want to say big congratulations to Ben and his partner, of course. That's great news. Hopefully we'll have another young Hornet there who'll be coming to Watford games very, very soon. And yeah, looking forward to the pod.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know already, James is the founder of the Watford Way. Obviously, their link will be in the tweet as well. So if you don't already, go and check them out and go and subscribe to them on YouTube. But the reason that we're here is to talk about the first game of the season that happened on Friday night. Wasn't the most entertaining game, it must be said, but a win is a win. A 1-0 win against Middlesbrough at home, a Craig Cathcart header. Bearing in mind that the Arsenal defeat was only, I think it was 47 days in between the Arsenal defeat and the Middlesbrough game. I was it's been a bit weird in the lead up to it, thinking, football's back. That buzz hasn't really been there, but when the match day had arrived, I sort of thought, okay, football is actually back. And it wasn't the best of games, was it, James? We'll start at the very beginning. The team moves, the team selection. What was your thought on the team selection?
Well,
because I was like, what? Have they put the right thing out here? Or
no, exactly. I was really shocked actually when I saw that because obviously the week prior to our game against Middlesbrough, I'm sure you all watched our friendly against Tottenham, and you had the likes of Estupinian. I think Luis Suarez played in that at some point, and I was expecting a lot more first team players to be available. But I think it was something absolutely ridiculous, like 15 or 16 first team players were unavailable either due to knocks or potentially moves away to other clubs. So yeah, I was quite shocked at the team sheet. And there was also some players there who I completely forgot about, the likes of Mark Navarro and Jerome Sinclair. I mean, I did not even realise Jerome Sinclair was still at the club. So yeah, it was a big surprise when I saw the lineup.
Yeah. For those again that don't know, firstly, where have you been? But secondly, the team for Watford was Foster, and then at the back was Ngakia, Cathcart, Kebaselli, Wilmot, Feminea, and then in the midfield you had Quina, Cleverly, Chalobah, and then you had sort of Ken. Ken sort of looked like at times he was playing up with João Pedro, but I believe that he was sort of put into the team to play behind João Pedro. So you had Sema and Pedro.
Yeah, I kind of thought it kind of looked like he was a wing back at times. So he was doing a lot more defensive work than he would have done when he played under Javi anyway.
Yeah. And the bench was Murray, Bachmann, Sierra, Navarro, Passetto, who's another one that we've spoken about on this podcast, was pretty sure he was going to Udinese at one stage. And if you believe Twitter, it was pretty much done and dusted, but obviously not because he was on a bench. Sinclair, as James has said. But the one for me that I was delighted that he was on the bench and actually come on later in the game was Dan Phillips. Now, we'll get onto him in more depth a little bit later on in the show, but I thought he was brilliant against Spurs when he come on. And from what I heard, against Scunthorpe as well, he really puts the shift in. Like, he looks like he wants to get stuck in. And hopefully, as I said on the last part, he's going to get a lot more game time this season now that we're in the Championship, because he does look like a good young talent that we've got on our hands. And I believe he was the 63rd Academy graduate to play at Watford, which is quite impressive for a team that are just full of Udinese loans, eh, James?
No, on that, I think that's something we were lacking in the Premier League, the lack of young players who would come up through the academy. So good to see he's got a chance.
Absolutely. But yeah, so into the game itself now. Yes, it took 11 minutes for us to score, but it was almost like watching a different Watford side a little bit to the one that played against Tottenham. Like, it was clear from the clips that we saw against Scunthorpe, because we didn't see much, and what we saw of the Tottenham game, that we like to pass it about, one-touch football, using the wing-backs a lot. And we did that, but it was almost a little bit sloppier. And I get that it was quite a different team from the one that played against Scunthorpe and Spurs, but it was almost a bit lacklustre at the time, and like it just didn't seem like it was going quite to plan for us when the sort of early stages in the game. I don't know if you thought that as well, James.
Yeah, I think you're right there. I think against Tottenham, in fact, I think a lot of the players that played against Middlesbrough, in fact, I think I messaged you before the game, just saying that I was quite worried coming up against Neil Warnock, just in terms of his style of play. And I thought maybe for some of the players on the pitch who like to pass the ball on the ground a lot, it was a lot more scrappy than it was against Tottenham, who had a lot of quality. And there's a lot of young players on the pitch as well, who I just thought maybe this wasn't the game for them. I thought Domingos Quina especially did not have a good game, but that first 10 minutes was promising. But there was a few. I thought Sombalonga looked quite dangerous on the break for Middlesbrough.
Yeah, as did Fletcher. I think they, like you said, James. You know what you're getting when you're coming up against the Neil Warnock side. Although I say that, but I'll put a stat out as part of the new previews, ladies and gents, that we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing sort of like a stat pack for previews, because we don't have the time, and we don't have the time to be putting out podcasts for every pre-match and every post-match. So if you haven't already, just have a look back on the one I did for the Middlesbrough game. We sort of did it last season, but we're going to be doing that. But one of the stats which it was, nice to read before I tweeted it was there's one, it's only us now, but before the game, there was only two teams that have beat Neil Warnock's sides the most, and it was us and Reading, both on 14. So our record personally against the Neil Warnock side, although we know how he's going to set up and it's going to be very difficult, very scrappy game, we generally tend to come off better. And that stat obviously lives on. And we're now obviously the most, we've beat a Warnock side the most. So we'll have to see how Reading get on against Middlesbrough this season. But like he says, I thought they made it very difficult for us. And I think this is what Vlad's, and listen, I feel a bit bad sort of saying all this, because it is only one game in. I'm not expecting us to be completely different animal. Vlad's not had the most time. Pre-season's not been the normal pre-season. So he's had a limited time to sort of implement his style of play. And Ivic himself said to the media afterwards that he said, I believe we didn't do good things in our attacking moments. We didn't play very well with the ball. We have to work a lot to improve this part of the game. So it was clear in that sense that we're maybe a little bit sloppy with our passing. There was a few misplaced passes, as you'd expect it to be with the first game of the season. But Warnock also said that their keeper, other than the goal, he didn't have much to do. And he's right. Like the passages of play were okay, and it got better as the game went on. But I just thought that we really struggled at times to break Middlesbrough down, and much to the credit of Middlesbrough for that. But is that something that you think it's literally because it's only the first game of the season, or do you think that maybe Vlad has to understand that the Championship's not quite as straightforward as he perhaps thought. I don't know what your views would be on
Yeah, I
that,
think
James.
he's only been with the squad a good couple of weeks, really. But you have to remember also that a lot of our main players that we relied on in the Prem last season were unavailable. The likes of, you got Will Hughes to come back, Andre Gray to come back, Capu if he stays, Troy if he stays. So there's a lot of players that will add to our forward play if they do stay, and I hope a number of them will. But it also looks like a number of them are going to leave as well. So it's about getting that right mix of defensive play, but also we have to have enough going forward to be able to score the goals. And I just thought at times we did have some opportunities, but we just weren't clinical enough. I think that final ball wasn't good enough. I know João Pedro tried a few nice little flicks, but they just didn't quite come off. But I'm sure with time that will get better.
Yeah, and we will touch on João Pedro's performance in a minute, but we've not actually touched on the goal itself. It came on 11 minutes, and it was something that Watford don't usually do. We scored from a corner. We scored from a set piece, James.
God, I was delighted, absolutely delighted with that.
Well, I was a bit worried because it was Quina took a short corner. I can't remember what way round it was. I think Quina took the corner, played it to Sema, who then just hit it first time, and there was Craig Cathcart, and the keeper had no chance. But it was brilliant to see us actually score from a corner, and we looked threatening from set pieces, which is a real change from last season.
Well, absolutely. I thought he got the better of his man. It was quite a thumping header actually into the bottom left-hand corner, and great delivery from Ken Sema actually, who was on loan at Udinese last season, and hopefully we'll see a bit more of that this year. I mean, hopefully if Craig Dawson stays, you saw towards the end of last season, Craig Dawson getting, I think post-lockdown, he got 2 or 3 goals, didn't he, from set pieces. So it's definitely something to work on. And I think after the game, Craig Cathcart said they'd actually worked on that the night before in training, that set piece routine. So it's always good to see.
Absolutely. And I think it proved that that was the case. But you know, Watford did what Watford do, and although we're expecting much better times under Vlad, we made it difficult for ourselves. We didn't really create anything that sort of clear after. João Pedro is one player that I really want to speak about, because I don't know if anyone's seen the heat map, but the heat map is he was everywhere. Like, I don't for 1 minute want to slag off Troy Deeney, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's just so different to what we saw the majority of last season was, we'll hoof it up to Troy. If Troy can win a flick on and we can get something from that, then happy days. Like, Pedro put himself about, and he's put on 5 kilograms of muscle, but in lockdown, and he just looks like he's ready for the Championship. Like, we could have a real talent on our hands here, James.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he was only £3 million from Fluminense when he arrived in January, and it was unfortunate that he didn't really get a chance under Pearson to show what he could do, because he came on in that last game against Arsenal, and I thought he looked promising in that. And yeah, he started up top against Middlesbrough. I thought his movement was a delight, actually, because how often do we see movement from a Watford striker? We don't really. So we've been watching Troy Deeney for all these years. So no, it was really refreshing, actually, to see a striker getting behind that much.
Yeah, and what surprises me as well is obviously coming from the Brazilian league. They put, perhaps he may know more about the Premier League with it being such a big league, but he's sort of got the understanding that the Championship is a lot more physical, hence why he's put weight on. His hold-up play was brilliant, and he created some half chances, but I was really impressed with his hold-up play, because like you look at him and you think he's not going to be able to hold it up, but he was absolutely brilliant, and you know, he was making dangerous passes for his teammates. You know, I think he put Ngakia through at one stage, and he involves other players around him as well. And we've sort of had that with Troy in his younger years in the Championship, and it worked. So I firmly believe that once he gets a goal, and I do think it's going to be very, very soon, I think he'll hit the ground running. And we could be looking at a minimum 15 goal a season striker in the form of
Yeah, I
João
hope
Pedro.
so. I think he's 6 foot as well. I think that goes under the radar a little bit. So he is quite a big lad, and I think because he's still going to have time to grow into his body. So I think the more he develops, it's really exciting that we've got a striker with as much potential as he has.
Yeah, absolutely. But the rest of the game, it sort of just it was mainly Middlesbrough. I think from memory they had their best chance was probably the free kick from a Sambalonga, which Foster ended up putting over, tipping over. But were you perhaps worried about how much Middlesbrough were getting into the game, or again, are you not so worried because it's so early on? You know, mistakes are going to be made. It's not going to be absolutely, perfect first time around. Are you generally happy? Because at the end of the day, James, what people have to remember, I've seen a lot of people already on social media slagging off certain players, like Saliba for one, who I thought was brilliant. Cleverly was brilliant. Captain, really, really good candidate for captain as well because he's got the experience. But
yeah,
I'm seeing people already moaning about certain players. It's the first game of the season. Yeah, it might not have been pretty. Yeah, there might have been a few misplaced passes. But at the end of the day, Neil Warnock alluded to it himself in the pre-match interview. The teams that tend to go up, the teams that win, and they win games by grinding them out and perhaps not deserving it. And we've done exactly that.
Yeah, exactly. And look, I mean, a win is a win ultimately. No matter how you do it, 3 points is 3 points, and I'm sure the squad will just be delighted to get off to a winning start because we were on such a bad run of form coming off last season. I think that's exactly what they needed, and to do it against the Neil Warnock side, I was quite impressed that we managed to hold out for that 1-0 win because I thought towards the end they did put us under a bit of pressure, but we did hold out. Them experienced heads got us over the line, and overall I'd say I was bored at times watching it, but we got over the line, and that's all I can ask for. And if the rest of the season we just got 1-0 wins, I'd be over the moon.
Absolutely. Yeah. Hopefully we'd play a little bit better and it would be a little bit more entertaining than that. But
hopefully,
at the end of the day, I've been speaking to a lot of mates of mine. I've obviously in Birmingham a lot, and they had a big win over the weekend. And just talking to people, they were saying, "Well, your game wasn't the most entertaining." But at the end of the day, I think there's this certain expectation of us to come down. And now that graphics being released of the squad numbers and seeing who we've got on paper, I think a lot of teams outside of Watford are thinking Watford should walk this league and play some fantastic stuff. But at the end of the day, a scrappy 1-0 win on a Friday night is just as good as, playing, tick-attack of football and winning 6-7-0 sort of thing. Like, it's just as good for the confidence for the lads. So yeah. I really do think that it has gone under the radar a little bit, but I think this is a much more important win for confidence than people perhaps think. But I also think that lineup will change quite a lot for the next league game as well, because of ins and outs. The news has come about today. We're recording this on Sunday, by the way, ladies and gents. But the news has come about today that it looks like Estupiñán's off to Villarreal, is it? Or
yes,
is it Athletic?
Villarreal, yeah.
Villarreal.
Yeah.
And it's 15 million euros, I believe, James?
Yeah, that's correct, yeah. And
15 million euros.
And and you mentioned that, and I think it's, I'm sure you agree with me, Mike, I think it's a real shame that he's going to be leaving just purely because we all saw him play against Tottenham. That to me said that he'd be sticking around. But I think he's only got 1 year left in his contract, and ultimately the situation we find ourselves in, a player 1 year left on his contract with the offer of top flight football in Spain. Watford need the money at the end of the day, and that's a deal that has to be done, unfortunately. But look, I wish him all the best, even though I've only seen him in a Watford shirt once, and hopefully we can get a young replacement in for him.
Absolutely, and it's just another example of the gems that the Pozzos are finding. The way that they blood these young players through and from teams that you may not have heard of, and then, sell them on for a bigger fee. We've got 15 million euros for a player that's played once for us in a pre-season friendly. Now, don't get me wrong, I'd have loved to have stayed. And like you said, James, the Tottenham game, I was sort of thinking, okay, maybe he's staying then. But, at the end of the day, as you said, we need the money. We've got 15 million euros for a player that's played for us once, not even in a competitive game. Sort of, thank you very much. If you don't want to be here, then see you later, sort of thing. I was also surprised that Feminir played as well, talking about the Spanish and whatnot. So I was adamant that he was going to be going to Valencia. I really did think that he was going to be, because he wasn't training with the squad at one stage, but I think that was more down to having to quarantine because he'd come back from Spain. But I was certain that he would have gone, and I hope he sticks around, because I thought he was good at times in the Prem. Yeah. So I think he can be even better in the Championship. But another player that looks to be leaving is Luis Suarez. Mm-hmm. I think they're saying that Marseille are the favourites at the moment. Now, that would be a massive, massive shame if he was to leave. I was really, really looking forward to seeing him play. And I genuinely think that he would have got minimum 15 goals this season.
Yeah, I think that would have been a real blow. That will be a real blow for Watford, I should say. Sorry, if he does leave. Adam Leventhal, I think it was this afternoon, he came out and he basically tweeted that they're the leading candidates to sign him from Watford. But Watford are still keen to retain him. So it looks like if they put in a good enough offer, he will be he will be out the door, unfortunately. But that will be a real blow, really, to our promotion chances, because if Troy's off, if Luis Suarez is off, that leaves us with who's that leave us with? Andre Gray, Glenn Murray, and João Pedro really up front. So
and Perica as well.
Oh, of course.
Is that how you pronounce it? I'm not sure how you
I'm not sure. No.
Yeah.
So we might be a little bit light up front, but it's just one of them things, isn't it? It comes with relegation. I think it's finally starting to settle in for Watford fans that we may lose a lot of our stars that usually feature in the first team. So again, like Estupinian, it will be a real shame if he leaves.
Absolutely. Well, but at the end of the day, we've got off to a winning start, which is what we expected. But not the prettiest of games, but in the Championship, doesn't matter how you get it. A win is a win. And we were briefly sitting top of the league. Then Birmingham come along, and then a load of other clubs won by a bigger margin.
I think we're 10th now, aren't we?
I believe we are. Yes.
Yeah.
Bloody.
Maybe it's time for Ivic to go. Hey.
Maybe we should change our name to AFC Watford, because then we'll probably be higher up.
Yeah.
The W doesn't do us any favours.
No.
But going off the back of this, we've got a cup game coming up on Tuesday at the Kassam Stadium. We're away at Oxford United, who were last year's quarter-finalists, and they've actually won the League Cup as well back in the 80s. So it'd be interesting to see what sort of team he puts out and what we're going to do with the League Cup, because I don't want to go into too much depth in it, but I just think that the League Cup, I know Man City keep winning it, and it's not fair, because Man City's second string side, Man City's third string side, they would still get in the top 6 in the Premier League. So no matter how weak, and I say weak in inverted commas, a side Man City put out, it's more than likely enough to be able to win the whole thing. But I think that teams like ourselves, and like teams that have come down or they're in the bottom half of the Premier League, should take this cup more seriously, because a lot of teams completely write the cup off. So I don't know. What are your thoughts going into that game? Do you think, team-wise, do you think we're going to see largely a fringe side, or do you think Ivic is going to be like, well, I need to implement this style, so I'm going to keep with the team that I would play in the league?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a lot of the team that played against Middlesbrough play against Oxford. I think that I think they need to get some minutes in their legs. I'd like to see Dan Bachmann in goal. I think he is the number 2 now for us, so I think he deserves his chance. He looked good against Tottenham, but again, like most cup competitions, you tend to have a mix of youth and experience. And hopefully we can get some of these player situations sorted out. Who's staying, who's going. And I know Sar's just come back from Senegal. Maybe it's a chance for him to get 10 or 20 minutes in his legs before we play Sheffield Wednesday on Saturday. So, yeah, look, would I take it seriously? Up to a point, yes. But I think the main aim for Watford is to get promoted back to the Premier League. And I wouldn't want a cup competition to detract from that.
Yeah, no, I agree. Look, you know, we want to get up to the Prem, but I sort of part of me does think that he might throw a few curveballs and there'll be some inclusions that you don't perhaps expect. And I wouldn't mind if we give it a go, as I'm sure that Ivic is capable of making sure that we won't get distracted from the league with the cup. But I just think if we're going to go for a cup, it needs to be this one because a lot of teams don't take it seriously. But the other problem we've got is we more than likely, you know, going to draw Man City at some stage, which our record against Man City is absolutely horrendous.
Yes.
But it would be interesting to see us come up against Man City with Ivic in the helm.
Yeah.
Because I think it could be very, very different. But listen, I'm getting way ahead of myself here. But
yes.
In preparation for the Oxford game, I did speak to a young gentleman from the Manor podcast. Not sure of the name, but hey ho. And his name was James. And the interview that I did, it wasn't an audio one. It was just me asking him a few questions. Those questions will be going up. This podcast lands on the Monday, so you're listening to it on the Monday. The interview that I did with James from Samana podcast, the questions and the answers will be on our Twitter page on on Tuesday morning, of the day of the game. So it's a very, very interesting points that James makes surrounding Oxford because they got to the quarters last year and they convincingly beat West Ham as well en route. So they're no mugs in that competition. So it's going to be very, very interesting. But I wouldn't be absolutely devastated if we were to crash out of the cup, to be honest. I think what you've said there, James, it would be one last distraction. But with that said, I'm sort of contradicting myself because I don't think Ivic would allow us to be too distracted by it. So it's going to be an interesting one to see what sort of team. I wouldn't be surprised if you see the likes of CRL you see Perica. We haven't signed anyone else from Udinese yet, but Bachmann, as you say, maybe even Glenn Murray. Maybe he'll start from the off. I don't know.
Yeah, I'd like to see. Sorry, Mike, just to butt in there. I'd like to see Dan Phillips get a start as well.
Yes.
You know, he played against Tottenham, didn't he? He came on for the last 10 or so minutes. Was it? I think it was the last 5, wasn't it, against Middlesbrough? And look, Dan Phillips is only 19, but he really gets stuck in, so to speak. So yeah, it'd be good to see him get 90 minutes against Oxford.
It certainly would, and perhaps some other youth players as well that we've seen in, because I believe we have actually signed Toby Stevenson from Charlton. He was on trial, and he does have a player profile on the Watford website, but nothing's been officially announced. So that's going to be an interesting one to keep an eye out on. But he's been largely involved with the team in pre-season, so possibly we'll see him as well. And then after that, it feels like we're jumping into the fixture list really, really deep here. But after that, we return to the league, and it's a nice trip to Hillsborough on the Saturday. So it's me and James will speak about it for a little bit, but I did speak to Peter from Owls About Stats podcast earlier on today, and you'll hear his thoughts on what he believes, how the game will go, who he sees as a threat for Watford, who we should see as a threat from Sheffield Wednesday, and just how he hopes that the season will go all together because of their 12-point deduction. But before you guys hear that, I just want to talk about it very, very quickly. Do you think this is a good time or a bad time to be playing them because of this 12-point deduction hanging over their heads? Yeah, they're already down to -9 as well, by the way.
Yeah, I saw that. So, look, you know, I think, I'm probably reading too much into it, but you look at the deduction they've got. they'd be wanting to rectify that as soon as possible, to be with a chance of getting as high up the league as possible. And I feel like that might be a factor that drives them on against us, trying to reduce that deduction they've got. So it's probably not a great time. They're probably going to be putting a few tackles in, getting stuck in, so probably not a good time to be playing them. But, hopefully we can get over the line, and hopefully we'll have a few more players returning from injury, or at least returning from all this ridiculous transfer speculation that seems to be going on around Watford.
Yeah, I really hope so. And like you said, it's going to be a more physical one for Ivic to sort of comprehend, because they will be up for it. They will want to fight. We tend to have a decent record recently against Sheffield Wednesday at Hillsborough. I think the last time we went to Hillsborough was in 2014, and we won 3-0. And then the time before that was in March, and we won 4-1. So, we in terms of our record at Hillsborough, I think we've actually won the last 4 at Hillsborough. We've won 3-0, 4-1, 2-1, and 4-1 again. So we've got a decent record at Hillsborough. So hopefully, long may that continue. But I do think that sort of Ivic needs to be a bit careful, because they did pick up a very, very good win against Cardiff, who I think a lot of people will tip to be certainly in and around the playoff spots. Yeah. And that will have done their confidence a world of good. But on the other hand, they've still got -9 points. They still need 3 wins just to get 0 points. So, it could work in our favour, really, or against us. But, as I said, I did speak to Peter from the Owls About podcast earlier on. We're joined by Peter to talk about the game that's coming up against Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, on the Tuesday, we have Oxford in the Cup. I believe Sheffield Wednesday have Rochdale. So the game is on the Saturday the 19th. And we, as always, are continuing the feature of speaking to an opposition fan. So firstly, Peter, I think it's probably the most obvious question that I'm going to ask. What's the vibe been like in the camp for Sheffield Wednesday fans surrounding this 12-point deduction? Because you need to win 4 pretty much straight away just to get level. Is it a bit of a dark place at the moment for Wednesday fans?
I think we're trying to make something out of the necessity, so to speak. I think a lot of fans are seeing that if you think about it, you need 50 points to survive in the championship. So with the 12 points reduction on top of that, that's 62 points. That's bang in the middle of the table. That's 12th, and you need to basically win 1, draw 1, and lose 1, play with 3 games. We had quite an underwhelming season last season, but we weren't that far off 62 points. So it doesn't take like a Herculean performance from us to get to survival this season, if you think about it. And if you look at there was a survey done by Yorkshire Live a few days ago, and I think it was only about 1/4 of Wednesday fans who expected us to be relegated, whereas about half of them thought we'd be in the bottom third of the table. So it's, I think, largely we've tried to make something good out of a really bad situation, and it's been like a rallying cry for Gary Monk, for both the fans and the players, and the players who've come in basically know that we are on -12. So it's probably some of the mercenary types that you can recruit sometimes. They've probably been dissuaded to join us. So the players who have joined us know the task ahead and know they have fight in them and they have good mentality. So I think actually people have moved on from the doom and gloom towards a situation where we're saying, well, we got to stick one up at the EFL and show that we can beat the predictions of a lot of people before the season and survive this season.
Yeah, it sounds an obvious question, but is that the objective this season, just to stay up because of this? Or do you think, as you said, you weren't far off the 60-odd point mark last season? Are you looking beyond just staying up and then maybe mid-table with this points deduction? Or is it as obvious as we've got -12 points, we need to stay up?
I think Gary Monk is trying to make it out that we're not just going for survival, and you can understand that he wants to keep the levels of ambition really high, because it'd be much nicer to be in a situation where we might even have a bit of a cushion to the bottom three come March, April.
Yeah.
And rather than planning the season around scrapping for points from the beginning, we look like we want to attack this head on and win some points rather than just nullify games and try to scrap for the points, as I said. So I think Monk is aiming higher than that, and I think many Wednesday fans don't really know how to deal with being on minus 12 points. And in my mind, you just have to throw the minus 12 out the window and just apply it when the final table is there, because we can't do anything about it, and it will show us in a false position on the table all season, basically. So I think we just have to forget about the points deduction and just focus on winning enough games and reaching targets of points for various stages of the season.
Yeah, and it's all well and good, this next question saying it, but would you say that it would have been a completely different season in terms of your expectations if that minus 12 points deduction wasn't there? Would Sheffield Wednesday fans be hoping that Gary Monk would be sort of pushing for a promotion spot, or what? I know it's easy to sit here and say if you didn't have the minus 12, but if you didn't, would it be a completely different season? And would it be like, right, promotion this season, that's got to be the bare minimum? What would the thoughts be around that if there was no minus 12 points?
Well, Wednesday fans as a whole, and I'm probably included in that, are renowned for our ridiculously high expectations. So I think most people would have expected a push for the playoffs, which about half of the teams in the division will probably be thinking ahead of the season.
Yeah.
So it's definitely changed the outlook of the season completely, and the chairman is also someone who doesn't want to admit defeat. That's the most diplomatic way I can put it. So he definitely be aiming for promotion, and he was last season as well, and he has been in every season he's been here since he bought the club 5 years ago. So in some ways, it's actually you can twist it into actually being a positive, that we have that weight of expectation lifted off our shoulders, and whatever we do above surviving will actually be seen as a victory, which is different for these players because they've been under a lot of pressure and also crippling under that pressure previously.
Yeah, well, I mentioned at the start you'd need 4 wins just to get yourselves to 0 points and sort of level. 1 win already in the bag, away at Cardiff, which a lot of people are tipping Cardiff to do well this season, and possibly even push on for promotion themselves. So first of all, that's a brilliant win, being away from home and against a team that people think they're going to be up there. Do you think, how are you feeling towards the game against ourselves? Because obviously a lot of people are expecting us to go straight back up. Do you think that win against Cardiff will help you massively confidence-wise going into the game at Watford, or what's your general thoughts about the game at home to ourselves?
Well, I think before the game, I talked with a few of my mates in England before the game, and I said that the Cardiff game is not going to be a ball, no score draw. It's either going to be us losing 3-0 by 20 minutes, or it's going to be us being completely on the ball. And thankfully, it was the latter. And after what we saw after the COVID break and then the restart in last season, we saw a team that didn't really turn up for a lot of the matches and seemed quite feeling sorry for itself. So this was a big test of whether Gary Monk, with the new coaching staff he has in, whether he's been able to change the feeling of the players and the mentality of the squad. And on that showing, it really has, because I've not seen a Wednesday team be that in the faces of the opposition for a long time, and that ability to fight it out and to stay compact and trust the system you're playing and trust your teammates to make the runs and to make the tackles. That's a long time since we've seen that. So that's really encouraging. And the other point is, like a lot of the other teams, we've not really got a number 9 at the moment. I really miss Stephen Fletcher. Thankfully, he's injured at the moment, but we really need a number 9, and we've been needing that for since the COVID break. where Fletcher refused to play. But what we saw on Saturday was both Windus and Jordan Rhodes scoring in the two strikers' positions. And Rhodes, I think it was his first goal in 9 months, and we've had a lot of false dawns with him. He's got a hat trick, a perfect hat trick against Nottingham Forest last season, but I think those were his only goals last season. So we try not to get ahead of ourselves with how the strikers did, but there were a lot of encouraging signs, and albeit that Cardiff were looking like a team that had just started pre-season, were sluggish on the ball and wasting the ball. And the first goal was us pouncing on a mistake of theirs, and the second goal was a set piece, a free kick that they really should have cleared. They had 2 or 3 chances to clear it, and they didn't. So I mean, I didn't really expect that from a Neil Harris side. They're usually very well drilled, and they certainly were at Millwall, and he really had something good going with Cardiff last season as well. So I was quite taken aback by how poor Cardiff looked, and seeing your game against or some of the game against Boro on Friday to open the season. It's a frightening looking squad Watford have when you look at the names of the players. But if you look at the names of the players, when Stoke came into the Championship, it was equally frightening. And Stoke have struggled to get promoted and even struggled to stay in the division last season. So it can be a positive challenge to have so many so good players that you obviously have. But I guess on the plus side, Watford is a club that is used to a lot of changes all the time. I mean, you seem to change managers more often than the rest of us change underpants. So maybe you're used to it and you can build that. But obviously there are some really good footballers in that side of yours, and obviously the lad up front, João Pedro, he likes dribbling with the ball. And just looking at the different stats and charts and what have you from and heat maps from your game against Middlesbrough, it seemed you attack a lot over the left side of the pitch, and you have some pace there. But thankfully we have we're likely to play Kadeem Harris at right wing back and Dominic Iorfa in the right centre back position, were 2 very pacey players. So I think we should be able to nullify the pace threat of Watford, and if we're able to stay as compact and pounce on mistakes in counter attacks, because you did make some mistakes in your build-up play, we might actually be more of a match to you than I thought 3-4 days ago.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned previously that you don't really have a number 9 because of Fletcher. Jordan Rhodes obviously scoring recently. Josh Windass, he's new and he's on the score sheet already. Who would you say is your danger man this season?
Well, on the current showing, it's definitely Windass. We're not likely. I don't think we're likely. I hope we get a number 9 in. But the rumours at the moment are that we're trying to get Kenneth Zohora from West Bromwich in on loan. I'm not really thrilled about that. There are other number 9s that I'd rather us sign. Yeah. But if we continue playing as we did against Cardiff, Windass, he's a really clever footballer, and it's actually quite hard to see if you see him on TV. But the last game the last league game Wednesday played, where fans were allowed into the stadium, was March 1st, I think, or February 28th, and I was actually there. And just seeing Windass move off the ball and constantly pointing where he wants the ball, constantly shouting at his teammates to which passes to make and the runs, and trying to anticipate where the ball is going to be 4 or 5 seconds from now. He's a really clever player, and definitely someone who seems to be a confidence player as well. So at the moment, he's looking like the most likely guy to break 15 goals this season for us, which is quite obvious to say after he scored and assisted a goal as well in his first game.
Yeah. So, and obviously we've talked about the depth in squad that Watford have got. You know, you said on paper it's quite a frightening side, really, on paper. Who would you say, from a opposition's point of view, who are you least likely or least looking forward to playing against from the Watford side? Is there anyone in particular that you think don't really fancy going up against him. Is there sort of a danger man from your point of view for Watford that you're not particularly looking forward to?
Yeah, I think João Pedro, he looks like he doesn't look like a championship player, does he?
No.
And I guess the question with a guy like him is, can he do what some of the guys at Wolves did when they were promoted and keep at it all season and just use that quality to just hover above the waters and just annihilate the division. I mean, a guy like João Pedro with the stuff he's showing, he could easily get 25 goals in the championship if he wanted to, but can he keep up the motivation and the hunger when he gets kicked in the shins and in the knees for the 10th time in the first half of the game? That's another question. But a guy like him, if he's unsung and if he gets the space, which thankfully we were really good at denying space to Cardiff. When we play a 3-5-2, a bit like Middlesbrough did, which means we're very compact in the central areas of the pitch, and when our midfield collapses on top of the defence, there's not really any room in there for passes or quick 1-2s or dribbles, as it seems like João Pedro likes receiving the ball on either side of the pitch and then drive towards the centre and have a shot. And I think we should be equipped to stop that sort of thing. But he's still, I mean, he's the sort of player who looks like he can be out of a game for 8-9 minutes and then score the winner in injury time. So I'm not looking forward to him. And obviously, your guy Cathcart scored from a set piece, and you look quite dangerous from set pieces as well. So. Plus, side, we have some good. Iorfa and Lees are both good defenders in the air as well. So again, it's not a threat I'm that worried about. We're quite well drilled both defensively and attackingly when it comes to set pieces ourselves. So
yeah.
So I'm actually. It's weird because when the fixtures came out, I think we played Brentford in a few weeks as well. It was like, oh, this is going to be a really tough start because Cardiff, obviously, as I said, are also. Well, they're likely to be challenging for the playoffs at least this season. And obviously yourself, if you don't get promoted, that's a big disappointment. And Brentford will want to kick on and get automatic promotion this season as well with all the money they now have to invest in the squad as well. So this is the championship. I mean, you can spend all the money you want, which we have done to our chagrin for the last 5 years. And you can have all the best players you want, but it's not going to win you the division or win you wins in this division. You really need to knuckle down and work hard. And that's a big question mark I have about Watford, I guess. Whether this supremely quality-wise squad you have, whether that can translate into being putting in good performances, including against us. And I think it's a good time to play you because you look like a team still in flux, and there will be quite a few players moving out, and you need to replace a lot of players, and you have a new coach in as well, and all that. So I'm trying to be optimistic and trying to build on some of the optimistic points and thinking, okay, this might actually not be a bad time to play Watford in one of the first games of the season. And I think Boro showed that there are some weaknesses to Watford's defence, especially when you chuck it into the channels and have some running duels. If you have some strong people on the ball, then a guy like Kadeem Harris would relish having some runs, and he's strong as well against your defenders, the way Fletcher in particular had against you for Boro.
Yeah. Well, with that said, I'm going to push you for a score prediction. What do you fancy next Saturday, Peter?
Well, that's put me on the spot, hasn't it? Well, it's one of those games where before the game I'd be delighted with the draw, and we have some newfound defensive solidity, which surprises me. And again, I think Boro did quite well to limit you to not a lot from like open chances and so on, and we should be able to do the same. I'm thinking, and this is going to be a bit of a wimp out, but it's a 1-1 draw is probably what I'm going for, and I can see us going ahead and you equalising. So that's probably what I'm going for.
That's absolutely fine. Yeah,
it's hard to predict, isn't it? It could be anything at this stage of the season.
Absolutely, with it being so early on, and way that new managers want to implement their style, it doesn't happen straight away. So I completely agree. And just to finish off, really, we've been asking every fan this. Who are your 3 to go up and 3 to go down? Starting with your 3 to go up.
Oh,
Put you on the spot even more.
Yeah. I've been collecting the predictions of about 30 different people and podcasts and what have you. So I've not done my own. I've wimped out because I don't really tend to watch that much of the championship other than Wednesday due to time constraints. But I mean, the obvious ones to go up. I think yourselves will go up, and I think Brentford will go up this season as well. And then it could be anyone. I could see a team like Millwall doing well in the playoffs and actually getting promotion. And the teams to go down, it's hard to see Wickham staying up. I really hope Rotherham stay up. I like Paul Warne a lot. But whether that will materialise, it's hard to say. A team like Reading could be in trouble. Huddersfield and Birmingham as well. I would probably go Wickham, Huddersfield, and Birmingham. I think there are some of the teams at the bottom who've been struggling to stay in the division for a few years who might actually find it a bridge too far this season. But it's hard, really hard to predict.
It is indeed. But yeah, no, that's brilliant. Well, as I said at the top, thank you very much for joining us. And I'll put a link in the tweet for Peter's podcast, which he does with 2 others, Owls About Stats. So thank you very much for joining us, Peter. And best of luck, other than the 2 games against us. You can do rubbish in them and then do absolutely fine for the rest of the season. But it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you.
Yeah, you too. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you. So yes, that was. Thank you very much for Peter for joining me. I'll put the Owls About podcast and Peter's personal Twitter in the tweet. So go and check them out. Peter, by the looks of it, does some brilliant stuff with statistics, and he's got a sort of guide on the Championship this season as well on his personal Twitter. So make sure you go and check that out. But James, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast. You've been on before, and I'm sure you'll be on again at some stage. But it's been a good one. It's nice to talk football again when the fact that we've won. A lot of the times, I think the last time we spoke, we just taken an absolute hammering from Man City. So it's nice to actually speak about a win, and hopefully there'll be many more times that we can speak about wins as well, because we, outside of podcast work, we do actually speak quite a lot in terms of the Watford in general.
Yes.
So it is very nice to be a little bit more positive than we was last season. But like I said, if you guys haven't already, go and check out James's The Watford Way. I believe that you're also doing similar with having fans on your YouTube as well. Is that right, James?
Yeah, that's right. So before every league game, shall we say, we get fans on to do like an opposition preview, kind of getting the perspective of a fan who's coming up against Watford, how they think we're going to play, what their expectations after the game. And I also try to speak to Watford fans from different corners of the world, because it's always interesting getting opinions from fans not in England. And, some of these fans wake up at 2 a.m. to watch Watford, and they are really, really dedicated. So it's always good to get lots of fan opinion.
Absolutely. So if you're listening and you're not from the UK, get in touch with James, and I'm sure he'll be able to squeeze you in one of the days. But and if you do get up at 2 o'clock to watch us, especially after last season, you deserve bloody keys to the city, I think. But at 3 o'clock over here, it's been bad enough. So fair play to you if you have been. But yeah, no, that's all we got time for this week, ladies and gents. Thanks very much for tuning in. Like I said, Ben will be back next week. He's new parenting duty, so he's had to take the week off. But hopefully we'll be back to talk about a victory at Hillsborough, and also squeeze in a bit of chat about possibly a victory at the Kassam Stadium. It feels bad saying this, but I'm not that bothered about how it goes. But we'll see. So hopefully we'll be speaking about 2 victories. It'll be very nice. But if it's just the one at Hillsborough, then I'll be very, very happy. But yeah, as always, thanks for tuning in. And remember to retweet us, tell your friends about us, Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast on the App Store, and you can subscribe on Spotify as well. But yeah, from me and James, thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.